When starting any project, the folder structure will be determined by the goal that you are trying to achieve. In this video, we will look at the folder structure for a full-stack TypeScript application that has worked well for a number of years for the teams that I lead. Let's go. Let's look at the packages we will need to carry out this process. We will be using Webpack to compile our front end. And then for the backend, all that we will need is TypeScript. Now, while developing, we want to compile the files on the fly without having to write them to the disk. So for the front end, we will be using Webpack Dev Server, and for the backend, we will be using TS-Node Dev. And to run these two simultaneously during development, we will be using concurrently. Now let's have a look at the folder structure for our TypeScript source code. All the TypeScript code is located under the source folder, with the app folder reserved for the front end and app.tsx as the application entry point. Then we have the server folder reserved for the backend and server.ts as the backend application entry point. Finally, we have the common folder that contains source code that can be used both from the front end as well as the back end. Now let's talk about tsconfig for a bit. The tsconfig file is used to configure the TypeScript compiler. At the root, we have a single tsconfig.json, and because of its name and its location, it should automatically be picked up by the IDE as the default TypeScript configuration for type checking. We specify that it should check all the files under the source folder. We do not want compile on save, as we will be using separate build tasks for the server and the front end. We do not want to emit any JavaScript, as once again that will be done using separate tasks. The whole objective of this tsconfig file is to ensure that all our TypeScript code in the source folder passes compile time safety under specific compiler options. Now for our backend, we will create a tsconfig.server.json that extends this base tsconfig, excludes any file that is reserved for the front end, and then overrides the compiler options, enabling output JavaScript, and specifies the compiler to write it into the lib output directory. Similarly, for our front end, we have a tsconfig.webpack.json that extends the base config and simply enables output so that Webpack can emit the JavaScript. Using webpack.config.js, we specify the front-end application entry point along with an output directory, and then specify the front-end tsconfig file for tsloader. All of the build tasks are carried out using simple npm script targets. Within our package.json, we have a script section. We have a build target to do a complete compile time type check, along with a build for the server using tsconfig.server.json, and a Webpack build using simply Webpack. And then for a complete build, we run these commands in order. For complete compile time type checking, it is done automatically by the IDE thanks to our root tsconfig.json file. The development time backend building will be done using TS-Node. The building of the front end during development will be done using Webpack Dev Server. And we start these tasks concurrently at the start of our development workflow. At the start of our development process, we simply open up the terminal and run npm start. This launches both the front-end and the back-end developer workflows. And we can see our front-end code, which simply displays two divs being served up at localhost 8080 by Webpack Dev Server, and our backend API server, which is listening on port 3000, works as well. And when we are ready to deploy our application, we simply run the task build. This does a full compile time type check of all the source in the source folder, followed by a backend build and a front-end build using Webpack. This generates the front-end assets present in the public folder, which we can deploy to a CDN, and the backend JavaScript assets built to the lib folder, which we can deploy to a Node.js server. The key takeaway from all of this is that you have a single root tsconfig.json file that ensures consistency of all the TypeScript code present in the source folder. And from this, you derive different compilation targets for the front end and the back end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please share it with your mates so we don't end up with overly complex project structures in TypeScript land. If you have any thoughts, leave them below. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. As always, I'm Besrit, and thanks for watching.